Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm Peter Kirby and be facilitating the conversation. Um, uh, Thank you, everyone, for making time to be able to attend this webinar today. And, we have some very interesting topic. Is, of course, I think if you read the paper, you'll see it's the smallest molecule on Earth. That's one of the challenges with it. But we'll leave that to the experts that we'll have later today. Got a couple excellent presentations this morning and this afternoon. Um, and to get us going, to get us started, please join me in welcoming Deanna George, who will be providing the territorial acknowledgement and opening welcome. Deanna is the youngest of four children of the late hereditary chief Ernest George and Deanna D. George. She was born and raised on Tsleil-Waututh lands, and she and her husband have four wonderful children and five beautiful grandchildren. Deanna's worked for the Tsleil-Waututh Nation since 1996 and has been on elected council since 2013. And she's a weaver. So thank you very much, Deanna. Gunashish, and please get us going.
Hi, Chika. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Antha Twalawit, Deanna Quanasqui, Talitzin Ak Slawatoth. I'm actually sitting in my office on the Siathnuts, which means like the bottom of a mountain, either a bay or I'm on the inlet, the broad inlet. I'd like to welcome you to the shared territories of the Homathquim Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I understand you're all in BC, beautiful BC. I hope you enjoyed the weather. We got a little bit of snow here yesterday. I'm glad it stayed up in the mountains. I looked at your program today and I wish you all the best. And I'm here on behalf of my sister, Leah George Wilson, and she loves to say, knowledge is power, share your knowledge. So I wish you all a very good day. Haitsapka.
Sheesh, Deanna. I try to pronounce your name, but I would not do a very good job. So, yeah, thank you again. We'll have some opening remarks now by the CEO of First Nation Energy and Mining Council and First Nations Leadership Council as well will follow. So with First Nation leadership, it's Robert Phillips, who's many of you will know is a member of the Cannon Lake Band. He's presently serving his fifth term as elected member of the First Nations Political Summit, political executive, and is elected First Nations Summit chiefs and delegates. Caleb is a member of Fort Nelson First Nation and served as lands manager for West Moberly First Nations, where he resides. He brings extensive experience in Indigenous rights, governance, environmental and resource law, and intergovernmental relations. His previous roles include Director of Rights Sector of the Assembly of First Nations, Legal Policy Advisor to the National Chief, Executive Director for Keepers of the Water Society, and senior lands and policy positions with First Nation governments and organizations. He's been directly involved in advancing implementation of United Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, supporting First Nations governance, and leading complex work related to energy, mining, cumulative effects, water governance, and consent-based decision-making. So please welcome Robert and Caleb for their opening remarks.
Robert, after you, I insist.
Yeah, congratulations, Caleb, for your appointment as the new CEO of the First Nations Energy and Mining Council. It's a very important position and a very important organization for our communities. And just like everybody else, I'm double booked, triple booked, but I can't complain around hardworking people like I see on the screen. And I give acknowledgments as well to Deanna for opening us up and as well acknowledge Musqueam And I joked this morning, I also acknowledge River Rock Casino because I wanted to make sure that gambling gods looked down upon me well. But all kidding aside, um, it's very important that we have people like Deanna open for us because it grounds us. It reminds us of who we are and what we're doing and who's going to do it because it is people. I'm at a First Nations Emergency Management Forum, and that's what I'm reminded right away when I went into that Starbucks there to grab a coffee. A community member leader immediately reminded me of the roles that people play in our communities. And not only that, but as well, as soon as I got up into meet the larger crowd, the technical people, and I think that's so important. Not only the legal minds, but people who actually work in the fields and do all the hard work, whether it's in behind the scenes or not. And so I just wanted to remind us of the importance of our communities, our nations, and who we are and what we're trying to do and working with governments of all levels, industries, unions, organizations, universities, all of those important players on the ground, and remind everybody that we are not stakeholders. We're Aboriginal rights and title holders. We're treaty holders, whether modern, historical, and Canada doesn't usually do treaties unless it's with other nations. And so I know I don't want to get too political, but in this environment that we're in now around the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, as well as the attack that seems to be happening by denialism, and as well what's happening with people that are being racist and prejudiced, um, we have to stand up together. And I think, and knowledge is power. And so that's why we're here, and that's why we're bringing everybody together. And it's not only about our lands and resources and our waters and our animals and fish. There's an interconnection there. So as well, so I wanted to acknowledge you as leaders, technicians, community members from all across the lands. And it's important that we gather to talk about the future of our lands and resources and water so that we're together as a nation, that we share this knowledge, we support each other, and we understand what's happening around us. And I serve as the political executive of the First Nation Summit. And just like in the speech I made earlier, I remind people the role of the summit or the union or the BCAFN or the Leadership Council is we take direction from our First Nations and we take direction to work with the First Nations Energy and Mining Council and to make sure that we are in a position where we have not only sharing that knowledge, but we hold that knowledge as well, and that we work from where we come from because we took care of the land for thousands of years. And as well, we know that there's information and knowledge is power, but as well, we understand that there's emerging technologies. And I had a great discussion about AI just the other day. And again, no matter what, a lot of this, even when it comes to AI and computers and the work that we're doing here, the resources come from our territories one way or another. And of course, one of those industries is hydrogen. And around the world, governments and companies are talking about hydrogen. And it's part of the transition to lower carbon energy systems. And here in Canada, the federal government through the Natural Resources Canada, and I just met with the new DM, Deputy Minister, and just an introductory. And it's important that we remind them of who we are and working alongside British Columbia and developing strategies and policies aimed at growing the hydrogen economy. And what that means is that in the coming years, we may see proposals for hydrogen production facilities, renewable energy projects to power them, pipelines, storage systems, transportation infrastructure, and potentially export terminals. And as we all know, when these major energy infrastructure is being discussed in the province, It often intersects directly with First Nations lands, waters, and territories. And that's why it's important for our nations to understand what hydrogen is, how it works, and what it could mean for our communities. The purpose of today's webinar and the paper that accompanies it is to support that understanding. And the report was developed as a knowledge resource for First Nations in British Columbia. And that's what the First Nations Energy and Mining Council does so well, to not only get the input from our communities, but then to relay it to all levels of government and industry. And instead, and in promoting the specific project is not telling nations what decisions to make. Instead, it's intended to provide clear, accessible information so that our leaders, our staff, our community members can better understand the hydrogen sector and have those conversations that are already beginning to happen, as I mentioned, around here, nationally, internationally. And First Nations have an inherent right and title and a sacred responsibility to protect our lands and waters as for future generations. And as I mentioned around the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and I know Caleb has a vast understanding of that. And so, I think it's so important that that we have an understanding, but each nation make its own decisions. And so again, this session today is to provide an introduction to a hydrogen landscape so that First Nations leadership can begin to understand what the technology is, to maybe look at the potential opportunities for their communities and why the government and industry are so interested, so that when it intersects with our territories, that for years ahead, we know that as the holders of our Aboriginal rights and title, and basically to understand this report, and as we walk through the key findings and answer those questions, because I know there are questions, and encourage everyone to listen, to dialogue, to ask questions, and that we get to the point of where at the end of the day, building knowledge and capacity within our communities is one of the most important things that we ever do and that we continue to do as orators, as oral history to written, now to in the future, as mentioned with this AI and everything else that we're doing today. So I just wanted to say, I took this opportunity to speak, and I will be in and out of the meeting. I just think it's so important, and that's why I join you today and relay the messages of the Leadership Council of the First Nations Summit and in the work that you do. Cookshan, thank you.
Must show, Robert. Good morning, everybody. It's my second day as CEO of the First Nations Energy and Mining Council, so welcome. Yeah, Must Robert. It's good words. Must show, Deanna. Love to your family as well. Leah's dear friend. For the welcoming, thank you, Peter, for the facilitation. For those who don't know me, my name is Caleb Bain. I'm registered to Fort Nelson First Nation, but I live on my mom's nation, West Moberly First Nations, Treaty 8 through and through, but I've worked all over the place. I want to acknowledge Dave Porter, the former CEO, for his leadership for 19 years of service and vision to our people, in building and running the Energy and Mining Council. Without his support, we wouldn't be here. And I'm very, very honored and grateful for his work and his experiences. Dave went to residential school with my father at Lower Post. We have shared territory, so it's an honor to have this role. I'm cognizant of time, so I'll keep my remarks brief. It's building upon what Robert said. The landscape is changing, and today the focus on hydrogen reflects government and industry's focus on decarbonization. As pointed out, it's a technology that governments believe in. There's both federal and provincial policies on hydrogen. There's associated tax credit systems, permitting systems, policy guidance. I suspect those will change. My intuition tells me those are going to evolve, and that's one of the reasons we're holding this today. the recent global conflict reminds us that hydrogen is not only a climate issue, it's a security and resilience issue. With the war in Iran disrupting shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which is where 1/5 of the oil and LNG on the planet flows, um, the importance of reliable domestic energy systems is becoming clearer. Um, that doesn't mean that hydrogen is the answer to everything, but it does mean that we as nations need to think carefully about where hydrogen might strengthen our long-term energy sovereignty, our resilience, and our strategic control. And I'd like us today to think about the strategic meaning of hydrogen, because the security logic of non-fossil energy systems is getting stronger. Even in the time since we published this report in November, the war in Iran has shown us how quickly things can change. And as pointed out, when these new energy systems, industrial systems emerge, they intersect directly with our lands, our waters, our rights, our non-human kin, our relationships to that which was before and that which will come after us. Again, that's why we've pushed for independent, objective information on this emerging industry. In some cases, so I'm in the Northeast. I'm coming to you from Deniset Territory in Treaty 8 today. And I acknowledge all of your territories, where you're coming from, and Mussie Cho for being here. In my territory, there's a number of rapidly advancing hydrogen projects at various levels and various contexts in the regulatory process. My dad's nation, Fort Nelson First Nation, we're exploring a major hydrogen proposal that would convert forestry residuals into low carbon hydrogen while capturing carbon emissions. We're dubbing that bright green hydrogen. The oil and gas majors have a number of projects with in the proposal stage with nations up here. So this is a very active space, and in that active space, the policies, the guidance, the possible funding structures, the implications, the benefits, the risks, all of that is being learned as we proceed. So I think the key question for us is not simply whether these projects will happen, because there's already evidence that they are advancing. The question for us as energy leaders and stewards is how should these new energy systems and industrial systems evolve? We will reject consultation after the fact. As Chief Philip often said, we've gone beyond the age of consultation and we're deeply in the age of consent. And as a consequence, as we exercise our jurisdiction and leadership, it is incumbent upon us to think about how we are going to shape the energy future of our territory and this continent, Turtle Island, and the world. BC has that significance, and that's why this discussion is so critical. So with that, again, cognizant of time, I have much more to say about it. I have a ton of questions, but I'd rather turn it over to the experts. So Mussie Cho, Peter, for the facilitation, Deanna for the welcoming, Robert for the welcoming words, and to all of you, in particular in the FNEMC team, for putting this together, for doing this research. I look forward to the discussion. Mussie Cho.
Yeah, goodness, geez, Caleb and Robert, both of you eloquent speakers and covered a lot of ground there for lots of for us to think about. So, as you say, Caleb, cognizant of time, we'll move on now to our first presentation with Brian Martin. Brian is our next speaker, and he's a consultant with Aki Consulting. He's worked extensively on energy and regulatory issues across Canada, and worked with the Canada Energy Regulator, supporting First Nations, governments, industry on energy infrastructure, policy, and regulatory processes. Today, Brian will walk us through the Hydrogen Literacy Report and provide a high-level overview of its key themes. His presentation's intended to help build a shared understanding of hydrogen and why it's appearing more frequently in energy and policy discussion. So please join me in welcoming Brian. Good to see you, Brian.
Thank you, Peter. And I'm honored to be speaking to everybody on the traditional territories, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam territories. I appreciate the great words from Caleb and Robert with regards to the introduction of what we're about to talk about. And really very timely, as Caleb said, there's very much a lot going on in the world with regards to energy. It has been going on for quite a while now, but the diversification of energy systems is even more highlighted today with what's going on in the Middle East, which requires countries out there such as South Korea, Japan, and others to look for other ways of getting their energy needs. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. I have a few slides I'd like to share with people. You just bear with me. I am not used to sharing slides on Zoom, so I've tried this before. Peter, if you could just tell me if you see my slide, that'd be great.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so today, my role is not to advocate for hydrogen. Not interested, that's not what we're trying to achieve. The session is actually about orientation to hydrogen and an introduction of the hydrogen literacy resource that was recently released by FNEMC. The document's purpose is actually to give First Nations shared language and baseline understanding so communities can ask better questions and make better informed decisions when hydrogen does show up either in policy or in project discussions, as Caleb just mentioned, in the Northeast. This literacy document is over 100 pages in length, but it does dig down into the hydrogen space in BC. It's a really good document to take a look when you have time and to use when these questions may arise as that resource document. This document is not a proposal. It's not meant to take any position, and nor does the FNEMC take a position either pro or against hydrogen or any other system out there, although we do advocate and are interested in renewable energy, obviously, which is what FNEMC predominantly looks for. That is where we start off today. So what is hydrogen? Well, hydrogen itself isn't new. It's been around and used in industry processes for decades. What is new is the level of policy attention and the investment around hydrogen as countries look for ways to reduce emissions and diversify these energy systems. Hydrogen is being explored because some sectors are difficult to electrify, including heavy transportation and certain industrial processes. In these areas, hydrogen-based fuels may provide an alternative pathway to actually reducing emissions. Hydrogens can also function as an energy carrier. That's critical and very interesting for a lot of people within the industry itself, because it can store energy, move that energy between regions, and connect electrical systems with transportation and industry. So the key point is this: hydrogen is not replacing other energy sources per se. It is being considered as one component in a broader clean energy environment. These drivers are discussed throughout the paper and reflect what we are seeing globally in the hydrogen policy and energy planning. Peter, I'm just going to ask as we move through the slides, because I can't see any hands, or if anyone has any questions. If that does create, if there are any, please let me know. And please don't be shy to let me know if you do have those questions as we go through the presentation.
Yeah, okay. If I see any, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Peter. So hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, and as Peter said, it's the smallest element. It's the smallest atom. It only has one, but it rarely exists on its own on Earth. It must be produced from other substances such as water or natural gas. And because of this, hydrogen is not considered a primary energy source like wind, hydro, or natural gas. Instead, it's considered an energy carrier. This means that hydrogen can store energy and move it, as I said, from one region to another. Once produced, hydrogen can be used in several ways. It can generate electricity through fuel cells, be used as a fuel in transportation, or support industry processes such as refining and steelmaking. So when we talk about hydrogen and energy systems, we are really talking about how it helps store, move, and use energy in the different sectors. Hydrogen does not exist freely in large quantities on Earth. It must be produced from other substances, as I just mentioned, and there are several pathways to do so. The three most common are green hydrogen, which is produced by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity from renewable sources, such as wind and hydro, which we see a lot of in BC. Blue hydrogen is produced from natural gas. Carbon captured systems are used to capture most of the emissions created during this process, which is why they consider it to be blue. The most gray hydrogen is also produced from natural gas, but it's not with carbon capture. This is currently the most common method used globally and the one that has the most carbon intensity with regards to emissions. The environmental impact of hydrogen does depend largely on how it's produced, which is why these different pathways are often discussed in policy and energy planning. And as Clib also mentioned, there is biomass that is now being looked at as producing hydrogen, and that would fall predominantly within the blue to green area, depending on the emission intensity of the carbon that's released through the production of the hydrogen. Are there any questions with regards to how hydrogen is produced at this point? Okay. So hydrogen today. Hydrogen is already widely used in the industry. Today, the largest use are in an oil refinery in the production of ammonia, which is used to make fertilizer. These industries rely on hydrogen as a feedstock in their chemical processes. Looking ahead, hydrogen is also being explored in new areas. One example is the heavy transportation sector, such as long-haul trucking, shipping, and aviation, where battery systems are not always practical. Hydrogen is also being studied for industrial processes like steel production and synthetic fuels, where it can help reduce emissions compared with traditional fuels. When I talk about synthetic fuels, you can one quick example is a sustainable aviation fuel that they're looking at doing. Another area of interest, or sorry, hydrogen. Another area of interest is energy storage. Hydrogen can be stored electrically and later converted back into power, which actually may help balance electrical systems with more renewable energy. So the role of hydrogen may expand from a few industry uses today to a broader role across multiple sectors. British Columbia is part of a growing hydrogen conversation because of several regional factors. And the report itself gets into very much a lot of details into this area, which I highly recommend everybody read. But I want to talk about three main points. The first is that the province has significant clean energy resources, particularly hydroelectric power. This makes it possible to produce hydrogen with relatively low emissions compared to many other jurisdictions, provinces, and even internationally. Second, British Columbia has industrial sectors and transportation corridors that could potentially use hydrogen, including ports, shipping, trucking routes, and resource industries. And we can just look at Kitimat or the Port of Vancouver. There are some shipping companies out there that are building ships, cargo ships, that actually are looking at using hydrogen fuel cells to power their shipping industry. Third, both the federal and provincial governments have introduced hydrogen strategies that explore how hydrogen could fit into future energy systems and economic development. And because of these factors, British Columbia is being discussed as one of the regions where hydrogen production and use may expand, I won't say dramatically, but expansively, certainly in the coming years. As hydrogen development is explored in British Columbia, it may involve new infrastructure such as production facilities, transportation systems, and energy connections. These types of projects can intersect with land and water where First Nations exercise stewardship responsibilities and hold rights and interests. Because of this, hydrogen development is not only a technical or energy issue, it can also involve environmental considerations, land use planning, and community decision-making, obviously. For First Nations, understanding hydrogen technologies and potential project models can support informed decisions about future energy developments and how communities may wish to engage with them. This is one reason hydrogen is appearing more frequently in discussions around the emerging energy systems. I do have a question for everybody because we're going pretty fast through the presentation here. And I did want to know and ask around, has anybody ever encountered hydrogen discussions in their region? I know, Khalid, you had talked about that. More than willing to share the floor with you or open it up to anybody else out there. So I'm going to stop sharing my slide deck just for a second, just so that I can see if should anybody have any questions or want to discuss about how hydrogen is impacted within the region.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I may have the pronunciation wrong here, but there's a name, Gbenga Ansola. You said yes, you have. Do you care to comment on that?
Hi. Yeah, my name is Benga. Calling from Clicketon Territory. Excuse me. Yeah, we've had prior contact with one, but that's specifically for heavy transportation usage. It's still in the pipeline, but there's been a prototype now.
And
Yeah, I can't really say more than that.
And Meg, good to hear from you. I'm just curious about your experience with regards to what had been going on in the in your area over the last number of years, because there was a lot of discussion within the Prince George region and the corridor, the hydrogen hub area that you're located in. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, without going into too much details, one of the shortfalls or obstacle, I would say it's been power. That's because we had a proponent who was going to do a lot of investment into hydrogen, but when it came to the issue of power from BC Hydro, it was a problem. Yeah, just to summarize, yeah.
Yeah, I believe they were looking for almost all of Site C to generate the production facility for the hydrogen facility they were thinking about putting in the Prince George area, correct?
Over 8,000 megawatt.
Sorry, say that.
Over
Was it-
8,000 megawatt.
Right. So yeah, and did you have any other thoughts with regards to that, or potentially even from off takes for hydrogen and how it would be used? I know ammonia was considered for Prince George. Did you hear anything else in regards to off takes for hydrogen?
It's just been transportation, transportation of long haul trucks.
Yeah, those are the ones I had heard as well. Does anyone else have any would like to step up and talk a little bit about any hydrogen discussions that have been happening in their regions and would like to share? Okay, with that, I'm going to utilize my poor technical skill sets in trying to share the slide deck again. Peter, can you see that?
Yes, we can see. It's back on. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So, understanding participation in hydrogen discussion, participation in hydrogen development does not only relate to project ownership. And I think that's critical in understanding that everyone does not need to necessarily have an equity stake with hydrogen project development within their regions. Communities may be involved in several different ways, including staying informed about emerging proposals, participating in discussions about policy or project planning, and contributing to environmental stewardship and oversight. The report itself highlights, this literacy document highlights the importance of evaluating these hydrogen projects, not only on a financial or technical factors, which are obviously very important, but also on the environmental, cultural, and community considerations, which I would argue is just as equally, if not more important. Early awareness and engagement are important because decisions made at early stages can shape the long-term outcomes. I would like to ask one more question of anybody if they'd like to step up. Just based on your experience, when hydrogen or energy proposals do appear or have been sent your way, where do you see the biggest issues, gaps, or concerns based on what you've seen or heard? And I won't stop sharing my slide deck so I don't delay this presentation any longer. But Peter, if anyone raises their hands or their comments, could you please let me know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing in the comment section right now, Brian.
Yeah.
But your question again, could you repeat it for us, please? And we do have one person.
Yeah. Based on your experience, when hydrogen or energy proposals do appear, where do you see the biggest gaps, issues, or concerns that you've experienced?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Travis, you want to go ahead?
Sure, that's a big question and a lot of answers. It could take a couple days to answer that one, as we all know. But in our roles as Yakima, our territorial environmental and protection and engagement processes, that Bill C, the new Bill C 141505, that with the expedited decision making and energy projects, is probably the most recent concern. And with that comes the sale pitches, all the companies and organizations that come into our territory with their, I call them sale pitches, they may call them consultation, etc. But, they become, fairly influential on say leadership, or those that don't have the career role that a lot of us have, and the information on this, and can convince bands, tribes, nations, etc., that they are good things in the territory. And some of them can be, but the information flow tied like what we're seeing here today is helpful. But we don't see that. We just see the sort of greenwash, right? And then there's the partnership and the economic opportunities that are the dangled carrot that most folks fall for. But I'm looking forward to this and hearing more about what kind of environmental impacts come forward, because I think we all know that we never get to hear those at really the true level that we discover when we research this stuff in detail. So looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Travis, and more than willing to talk offline later on and do some more further depth, where we don't have a lot of time, obviously, today with the other presentations that are also on the go. But as I'd said just a moment ago, the stewardship element tends to it has to be done at an early stages for the engagement for the proponents coming to you. And I'm just curious, are they coming to you quick enough in an early fashion, or are they coming to you with almost a blanket, here's what we got, you guys want to join us type thing?
Yeah, that's it's a mad rush now. They're calling it, what are they calling it? Well, they're calling part of our territory the new energy corridor. So they come in fast. They make up their own timelines, just like any other industry or sort of crown corporation, right? They come forward, they dictate the timeline, and then it's just up to us to just always say and respond back. Your timelines are whatever, but we're here forever. So we try to slow them on that and put them through our processes. But I've never found any consultative timeline or notification adequate. And then you're going to want to spend the time and the money to look at impacts of the projects. But it's really, to me, just a challenge of informing our internal decision makers or our leadership on the details of this. So, yeah, no, it's I don't think any engagement with Crown or industry is a decent timeline. I hope that helps answer.
Yeah, no, this was great, and I'd just like to see if anyone else would like to share some of their experience with regards to this topic.
Yeah, we have another person there, Mari. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mallory Dixon. I work with Health and Climate Action based in Bella Bella. I just wanted to share what we are doing. Our community is conducting a pre-feasibility study for a hydrogen backup power system in Bella Bella. The project is exploring 4 deployment scenarios ranging from centralized to decentralized configurations to provide a reliable backup power during grid outages. So we're just doing a feasibility study on that. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
No, that's great. And so it sounds like they're looking at balancing that electrical grid and, which I think is really good. Is there something that as you go through this process, is there something you say, geez, I wish I had this piece of information, or is there something there that you could say, whether it's this literacy document would have helped back then, or is there anything? I don't want to throw words out there, so I leave it as an open question.
Yeah, hydrogen's very new to me. I feel like I'm in school again trying to learn about it, so it's very new to me. Um, Very early stages of our feasibility study. Don't have much to say on that right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing your comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And next, Carol, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, Carol McCauley from the Nicola Valley. One of the biggest concerns that we have in the Nicola Valley is water. We're always in the process of protecting the waters, and we know that in the Nicola Valley, the water is getting more and more scarce. So water is becoming a big issue now, and I know that some of these projects want use of a lot of water. So we are really looking at that and making sure our waters are protected. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the comment, Carol. And again, is there anything that you would like to see FNEMC do to assist from a literacy perspective, or is there something that that you're missing from a either an oversight aspect of things? Again, I don't want to put any words out there, but so I'll leave it as an open-ended question again, if that's okay.
I believe that because of the fast tracking that's going on uh, across the globe, if you want to call it that, or even in our own territories, it is very interesting in how things are changing very fast. And so we're looking at those and the impacts that it's having on the landscape is really important, and water especially is one of them. So I would be interested in looking at, and I know with the environmental assessment, that's even being exempted from some of those energy projects right now. And I think we are maybe going a little bit backwards because of the speed of what we of what industry and everything want, what we want to do. And I do understand the security as well, but we have to be very, and because we are protectors of the landscape, we got to be very careful and making sure that economics does not override the environment and how we need to protect, and like again, especially water. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Carol. And absolutely, the stewardship, as I said, I at the earlier, is even more important in some cases to some of the other items. Certainly, everybody is looking to ensure the safety and security and energy, the energy sovereignty that we're all looking for to do what we need to do, but not at the expense of something that we've been doing stewardship over millennia. So thank you for your comments again. Excuse me, Peter. Anyone else before I move on to my last slides?
Don't see anything in the chat and no hands raised, so carry on.
Excuse me. Okay. Thank you for that. Again, before we wrap up, I think it helps clarify what this report again is intended to be. It's a reference tool to support these discussions and understanding of hydrogen. It's not a directive telling communities obviously what decisions they should make, but they help guide you to resources and information that you may want to utilize. The goal here is to strengthen the information available so that your communities can engage actually on your own terms. And with that, I do want to say that there are other resources out there as well. This is but many. I know from a financial aspect of things and what's going on with the government of Canada, their policies. There's a lot of financial incentives that are out there. We won't get into those today, but that is an element that you may want to look at. And I know the Major Projects Coalition has a number of different resource tools for that. And believe it or not, if you look down south, even regardless of what President Trump has just recently done over the past year with regards to renewable energy sector, there is a lot of great information down there with regards to hydrogen as they had been moving almost at lightning speed in some cases within some of their communities in these hydrogen hubs that they had created across the country. So again, there are other resources out there that can be utilized. And I think the one last thing I will mention before I open it up to any last minute general questions is if anyone's wondering about a jurisdictional who's actually from a government perspective that looks at this, predominantly hydrogen is done at the provincial level from a regulatory perspective, unless it crosses an international or provincial boundary. If it does that, then it falls within the Canada Energy Regulator in that act at the federal level. And I have heard, and please, it's general rumor here, that they're still looking at building pipelines, basically a hydrogen pipeline between Edmonton and the coast. And I don't say that as it's a serious discussion, but these are the type of things that are going on out there. No roots or anything else like that. It's just broad and in general is what I'm hearing. But they are still looking at doing things like that. So these discussions are going to ramp up in what I've seen over the last number of years, and will continue to do so. So with that, I will stop here because I do want to hear any general questions you may have. Hydrogen will again evolve quickly over the next decade. There's a lot of reasons why from those three main areas that I've talked about with regards to our location in BC, the policies that are in play, and in the world at which we live in. So we will hear over the next couple of presentations from the industry or First Nation perspective as well. Today, in this presentation itself, was just really meant to, give a general orientation to hydrogen. But the literacy document itself is a very good way of digging into the specific areas, especially whether you're in Bella Bella and Prince George and northeastern BC. So with that, I'll stop my presentation and just ask if there's any last minute questions before I turn it back over to Peter.
I'm not seeing any questions, Brian, but I do have a couple of my own. You mentioned provincial regulation except transboundary. Do you know if a development is on reserve land, if that would cause federal regulation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a specific answer except to say that the Oil and Gas Commission would be dealing normally with energy on reserve. Salus Element, I think, could probably answer that better as they've been going through this process. And I don't know if they're here right now, but will be speaking next. And it's a really good question to ask them, as I don't have direct knowledge on that. So thanks for the question, Peter. But short answer is I don't have an immediate answer for you, but I think I know who does.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is, you mentioned a talk. It's just talk about a pipeline from Alberta to the coast and for hydrogen. My understanding, because of the size of the molecule of hydrogen, the grade of steel needs to be significantly higher than, or whatever material the pipeline is made out of. Do you know what that impact would have on cost of 100 kilometers of pipeline?
Yeah. Yes, Peter, I guess, and again, HTEC may have some thoughts on those pieces, but I'll tell you what I learned while I was in the regulatory environment myself. And that is the existing pipelines in and of itself. They were looking at blending hydrogen within the existing pipelines to see if they could utilize those. Enbridge and a number of other industry companies were looking at that, specifically Enbridge was, to see if they can get a blend into 20% or 30% within the pipelines, because the hydrogen will do two things. One is, because it's the smallest atom, it escapes really easily. So they're worried about the loss of the hydrogen product that they've produced. And the second piece was the pipelines themselves, because of hydrogen and the way the way it works, is that it degrades the pipeline over time. So that's why they were doing these trials with pipeline. And so one of the biggest showstoppers about 5+ years ago, with regards to getting hydrogen from inland to the coast, was very much they would lose too much of the product in the eyes of industry. I'm being told that there are now these pipelines that they're looking at that actually can contain the hydrogen to a degree where it's still profitable. That's going to be up to industry to figure that out, but it definitely would be more expensive. And producing hydrogen in and of itself is one of the most expensive ways of producing energy. So again, the offtakes of using hydrogen, there has to be a really good business case to use it. And predominantly, it's that energy carrier aspect of things, of moving energy from one region to another, that would make something like this potential pipeline a useful endeavor from an industry perspective. Before, the answer was they didn't think they could do it. Now they think they can do it, and now it's going to be a matter of how much would it cost to actually do it, and what's the best way to get it there. Did that answer your question, Peter?
Yeah. It's we get into these areas where my knowledge limits my understanding of the hydrogen and the business case. I guess I was asking more as a like big number, high level, which probably in your mind you provided. But thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, with that, Peter, I'd like to thank everybody for your time and turn it back over to you, Peter.
Yeah, goodness, sheesh. So we're at a place now where the next speaker is Tom Moyes, CEO of Salish Elements. It's an Indigenous-owned clean energy development company that aims to create green hydrogen-based energy corridor along the West Coast that revives the spirit of traditional trade routes. He brings international experience across the hydrogen and energy, finance, consulting, healthcare, and sustainability sectors, with particular expertise in energy project development and project finance. Over the course of his career, he's contributed to multiple multi-million-dollar energy and healthcare projects around the world, successfully integrating commercial, financial, technical, and sustainability objectives. I don't know if I've seen Tom on here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Okay, thank you, Tom. Yeah.
Let me see if I have to request the sharing, which I just did.
Yeah, good, Mark.
Actually, I think we got this scheduling a little mixed up here, Peter.
Yeah, sorry about that. I see now that, sorry, Tom, I put you ahead of where we have you. I missed Tim Murray.
Oh, okay. So should I stop
if you
sharing?
could hold on. Yeah, my apologies. If you could,
Yeah.
if you could
Okay.
hold off until this afternoon, I'm very sorry about that.
Okay, so is this afternoon then? Okay. For my
Yeah,
side?
yeah, we've
All right, right. Okay, sounds good.
gone, gone through a couple iterations of slotting people in, and I had the wrong piece of paper in front of me. So my apologies to you and to everybody else. Um,
No problem.
so HTech and Brian mentioned HTech in his presentation, and that is Tim Murray. He's a director of corporate affairs there. I see you there now, Tim. Thank you. Um, it's a hydrogen company building out hydrogen infrastructure across British Columbia. He also leads HTEC's engineering services team, which supports communities, governments, and industry partners in advancing their hydrogen projects. His work ranges from national level initiatives, such as contributing to Natural Resources Canada hydrogen strategy, to detailed feasibility studies and market analysis to help bring clean energy ideas to life. So with that, Tim, please go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Peter. Very happy to be here today. I'm joining you from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, where I live, work, and play. Yeah, we'll be talking a bit about hydrogen today and what we're doing in that space. I will also be looking to share my screen, so let me pull this up. Hopefully you're looking at a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so just quickly, Brian did a great job sort of outlining the hydrogen sector and uses, sources of hydrogen, but just to add on, why is this important? Hydrogen is an option for the energy transition to a net zero future and decarbonization. Canada, the province, municipalities, regions throughout have set serious goals to decarbonize, to get off of fossil fuels, and hydrogen is one of the key tools in the toolkit that can help do that. It's not the only one. It works complementary to other technologies, but we see it has a role to play, particularly in some of those hardest to abate sectors. Heavy duty transportation, industry, and so forth. And so it's a real opportunity for the province to help in that decarbonization journey. And as well as was talked about by Brian and Caleb, the energy sovereignty, resilience, reliability is another role it can really play in helping best leverage our internal resources and improve our environment and our world. The sector has been growing significantly. So this is from an IEA report looking at deployments across the world. And this is number of hydrogen-powered fuel cell vehicles that have been steadily growing over the last 6 years or so. It looks like a bit of a pause in 2025, but that's only a partial year data. So if you looked at the full year, it would continue to grow. So we're seeing increasing deployments internationally. And you can see on the graph on the right, it's really a lot of growth in Korea, China have really taken the lead on those deployments, with North America following. But in Canada, there's a lot of activity as well. This is from the update to the hydrogen strategy, came out in 2024, just showing projects underway. So it's a little outdated, but it does show there's sort of activity coast to coast across the country, and BC, Alberta, particular hub of activity. So there's lots going on, different types of projects of many types. So a lot of activity, a lot going on as we look to move forward with the hydrogen sector. A little bit about HTech. So we are a company of about 115 people who build, own, design, operate hydrogen infrastructure across the value chain. We've been doing this for more than 20 years and have put equipment in the field. We had the first commercial hydrogen fueling station that became operational in, I think, 2018. We've built out the first commercial scale electrolyzer in BC, that's currently operating in Burnaby. And we're passionate about this, and we've been working towards it. We're split into 4 business units that oversee different areas of the organization. So there's Clean Fuels, which handles our hydrogen production assets. So this is about making the hydrogen. Brian talked about there's different pathways to do that. We have an electrolyzer, which means we're taking renewable electricity and using that to split water and make hydrogen. So it's very low carbon, creating clean fuel for local use. And we have our stations and distribution teams. So we've built hydrogen fueling stations for vehicles on the light duty market, and we're commissioning our first heavy duty station right now. So these are serving vehicles that are operating today in BC, running on our clean hydrogen. And we have our vehicle leasing corporation, which is really intended to help get more vehicles on the road. We have been procuring Class 8 tractor trailers. You can see one there that we lease out to customers. Helps de-risk the procurement of those vehicles and helps build confidence in the sector as we deploy more and more of these large heavy-duty vehicles. And then we have our engineering services team, which really tries to leverage our expertise and experience to help others advance their hydrogen projects. So we work the range of customers trying to advance their projects. That can be in feasibility stage, project development, detailed engineering, conceptual studies. A rising tide lifts all boats here in the hydrogen sector. So we're trying to do what we can to let people learn from some of the lessons that we've faced over the years and really try to help get the sector going. One of the big things that's key to our strategy as an organization is building up hubs. The hydrogen sector has sort of this classic chicken and egg problem, where no one wants to invest in making hydrogen because who's going to use it? And no one wants to buy the end use equipment to use the hydrogen because there's no one there who's making it. And so what we've tried to do is bridge that together with hubs. So these are ecosystems, regions where we can match production and end use and bridge that gap and pull this all together. Hydrogen is a sector that benefits from scale. So it's quite difficult to execute a project to do one hydrogen vehicle. It's much easier to do hundreds, or the costs come down with scale. Kind of unlike battery electric technology, where putting in one charger for one vehicle is quite straightforward. But then when you get up to hundreds of thousands of vehicles, the transition can be much more challenging. So this helps us pool resources, build projects that sort of are cohesively fit together. And by doing that, we're able to make sure that things move forward in lockstep and build up together. So, best example of that is our Metro Vancouver hydrogen hub. So this is in operation now. We have our clean production facility that feeds to our network of stations and keeps these vehicles on the road. And so we're doing it all regionally to try to match that end use and demand. This is an overhead shot of our clean production facility in Burnaby, just to try to give you a sense of sort of scale of what some of this equipment looks like. So you can see, I'm not certain if you can see my cursor, but at the kind of bottom of the screen, you can see a couple of people there. On the bottom right, you can just see one of those Class 8 trucks. And so just to give you a sense of sort of how big this thing is, this is our electrolyzer production plant, that little container with the fans on top of it. That's the electrolyzer itself. So that's the unit that's taking electricity and water and producing clean hydrogen. It gets distributed to our sites through trailers. You can see one of the trailers parked there. That's the sort of silvery box with the blank tanks on it. This produces enough, it produces up to 1,000 kilograms of hydrogen a day, which is enough to operate something like 2,000 light-duty cars. There is also a liquid tank you can see on the right. So that allows us to take in liquid hydrogen that gets delivered to the station, which supplements our supply and helps with our redundancy. And that's how we get up to the 3,500 fuel cell electric cars or 50 plus trucks, heavy duty trucks. So this exists today. This is not a rendering. This is a plant that is existing in Burnaby. And as I said, that feeds our light duty network. This is our station in Kelowna that's serving cars. That right there is a Toyota Mirai. So that's a hydrogen fuel cell electric car, runs on hydrogen, has an electric drivetrain similar to a battery electric vehicle, but it takes in hydrogen and outputs water vapor and turns the wheels. It's a pretty nice vehicle. Currently available in the market. There's this Toyota vehicle as well as a Hyundai. It's called the Nexo, which is a bit more like an SUV style vehicle. We're also supporting other innovative projects. We're involved in one at the Port of Vancouver, where there's a rubber tire gantry crane, or an RTG crane, which is this big orange unit here that picks up shipping containers and moves it around the port. Traditionally or generally, these run on diesel generators. So we have helped replace the diesel generator on this unit with a hydrogen fuel cell. And this is one of our delivery trailers putting hydrogen onto that crane. It's been operating in kind of 24/7 operation at the port. It's in its recently, or within the last couple of months, entered its second year of operation. And it's been performing well, reliably. The customer's been quite happy with that product. So, it's not limited to transportation. There's lots of different applications where hydrogen could be used. It's a versatile energy carrier that can displace gasoline or diesel across the sector. I mentioned our truck program. So we have procured our first 12 trucks that are here ready to go. This is a picture of one of them. It's made by Hyundai. And these will be pulling goods sort of in and around the Lower Mainland to decarbonize the freight market. It's exciting. We're as I said, our heavy duty station is in commissioning. We're excited to see these get into full scale operation. We've been doing some limited trials already, and the response from the operators has been quite positive. They've been pleased with the way these work.
Hey, Tim, sorry to interrupt you a little bit.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
want to hold questions to the end, or would you like them as you go?
I'm happy to take questions as we go.
Okay, we have one from Benga. Could you speak to the rate of combustion in comparison to gas-powered or electric vehicle consumption?
Yes.
Consumption.
So the hydrogen in these vehicles isn't combusted. It's used through a fuel cell, which is, you can think of like the engine in these vehicles. So that's actually generating electricity through an electrochemical reaction. I don't want to get too much into a science fair, but so it is not actually combusted. It's used for a fuel cell. And a reason that's important is because they are more efficient than a traditional internal combustion engine. So we do see an efficiency gain in these vehicles compared to the gasoline or diesel incumbent. A fuel cell is about twice as efficient as an internal combustion engine. Depends on the duty cycle, the use cases for these equipment, but that's the range of what we'd see for the Class 8 trucks right now. It's not showing quite as high an efficiency gain as that, but on the cars, in terms of the energy in to kilometers driven, yeah, it's more than a doubling in the sort of energy efficiency of the unit, and that's really important. And to just give a fulsome answer too, it is less efficient than a battery electric vehicle. So we have more losses through the fuel cell than we do through battery electric. So sort of in comparing the three technologies, that's your pros and cons. But hydrogen has the advantages of one, it can be fueled much faster. So a fuel cell electric car fuels in something like 3 to 5 minutes. The truck is maybe more like 10 to 20, depending on the station. So it's a much more similar experience to a gasoline or diesel vehicle. They also have longer range, so less need for frequent refueling or recharging, and can achieve sort of higher power. So they tend to be sort of higher performing vehicles than a battery electric, as well as lighter than a battery electric, but don't have quite the same efficiency boost while being still more efficient than a combustion engine. Hope that answers the question. Perhaps a little long-winded. Apologies.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And Benka, if you have more questions, just go ahead.
I know we don't have a lot of time, but in every conversation around hydrogen, safety always comes up. So I wanted to speak to that a little bit.
Tim,
Yeah,
can you just go back a slide real quick?
Yep.
One in the north, so where I live, like we have a ton of heavy haul, and it's very cold. It's like -40 quite regularly this winter. Have you guys done any research on fuel cell performance in cold weather? I'm thinking, sorry, the person who mentioned the feasibility study, Marlene Dixon. I was wondering about fuel cell performance in cold weather, remote rural environments. Have you done preliminary research in that context?
That's a great question. There has been some work in that area. In general, a fuel cell engine shouldn't see the same reduction in performance in cold weather that a battery system shows for transportation in particular. But it does have some impact. So there are bounds on which the fuel cell likes to operate. A lot of work has gone into the engineering to make sure that that can handle cold starts and cold weather. But it's particular, a lot of the leader in this technology deployment, especially in North America, has been in California, which is obviously quite moderate. So it hasn't been tested in the true cold weather conditions. I do know that there's a trial underway right now in Edmonton, where they've been demoing fuel cell electric hydrogen buses. And so that's providing some interesting data into the performance in cold weather that hasn't been too tested in other locations. From what I've heard or seen, it seems as though again, there is an impact, but they've been able to operate and they've been showing some good results there. I think more will come from that study soon. So that's a good sort of data point that'll be coming in the near term.
We'll see, Joe. Helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So as I said, safety always comes up when we're talking about hydrogen, and there are risks, there are safety concerns with hydrogen, as with any fuel. So just here, a little comparison to some other fuels like natural gas and propane. Hydrogen is a transparent gas, but unlike the others, the flame is also not visible. So it burns clear, which means it can be more difficult to detect. It's also odorless, so you can't smell it, and it's difficult to inject an odorant to make that clear. So the detection systems are different for hydrogen than they would be for their other fuels, but they do exist. So it's they need to be implemented. But we use special sensors that can detect when there's a flame and trigger alarms, trigger safety mechanisms. There's good codes and standards regulations sort of requiring these. It is non-toxic, which is a benefit. You wouldn't want to breathe it all in to displace the oxygen, but it doesn't have the carcinogenic or other toxic properties as some other fuels. And it's incredibly light, 14 times lighter than air, which means if there is a leak or a flame, it shoots straight up, which is generally a useful property. And I feel like this slide demonstrates it well. So you can see this is an experiment that was done some years ago where they had a hydrogen tanks in a car and a conventional gasoline car. They intentionally punctured the tanks and lit a fire. And you can see the hydrogen car is on the left, the gasoline is on the right. And so the flame from the hydrogen is shooting straight up very quickly. It burns hot and fast and disperses quickly, as opposed to the gasoline, which pools under the vehicle and burns it all up.
If I could just ask, this is a good slide for this question as well, is volatility. And anything that burns needs oxygen, I think. And so there's a ratio of mix between the whatever the thing is and oxygen. And how can you speak to that a little bit in comparison between gasoline, hydrogen, methane?
Yeah, hydrogen is quite combustible. I think there's a fairly wide range of that percentage mix under which it will combust. So it is flammable. I struggle to remember you're testing my knowledge here, but the lower flammability limit and the upper flammability limit. I'm trying to think of how they compare to those other fuels. I think it's a wider band, but it may have a higher cutoff, so you need more hydrogen in it to initiate a combustion event. But like those fuels, yeah, it does combust over a range of conditions, and so safety is paramount in this sector. It's something we take very, very seriously at HTEC. It's something that we do not compromise on. But there are good ways to do this safely. You need to be careful. You need to take those practices into account. But it's yes, it's not without risk, but there are good ways to de-risk, make it safe. We have not, knock on wood, Czech has not encountered a serious incident at any of our locations. We take pride in that and work to ensure the safe operation of all this equipment.
Thanks.
Welcome. So just the last thing I think to touch on here, as I said, in addition to developing all our own projects, we like to help others do the same. So we provide a range of services in advisory functions or design functions, trying to help advance other people's projects, leveraging from our expertise, our experience. And so we've done that for as sort of noted in the intro, for large government projects, as well as smaller specific feasibility or design studies. Particular area in the transition planning and sort of future planning for how hydrogen can be adopted or incorporated into ongoing operations to reduce emissions and increase that resiliency. With that is my last slide. I've got my contact info up here. I'm happy to take additional questions now, but if there's any follow-up questions, I'm happy to be contacted by anyone online. So feel free to reach out. Can set up another discussion or respond to an email. So always happy to talk about this stuff and share our knowledge, share our experience.
Yeah, so I don't see any hands raised. Oh, here's one. Can you talk about the expansion of hydrogen use for the past 20 years in BC and what HTEC is expecting in the coming years?
Yeah, that's a great question. BC has been quite on the tip of the spear in hydrogen technology development. There's a good cluster of technology companies here in hydrogen that sort of led from Ballard Power Systems, which was a big hydrogen fuel cell developer. It has spawned multiple spin-offs, and so we've done a lot. There's a lot of knowledge, expertise, but we haven't had as much adoption of hydrogen technology. Most of that technology has gone to other places to be used in China or in California. What we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years is, I think, a transition from sort of science fair projects, first of their kind prototypes and early data collection trials, to more commercial products. So I showed some pictures of the Hyundai fuel cell electric truck. That's coming off of a commercial line, and they're being produced not at a very large mass scale, but not in a bespoke way anymore. So we're seeing commercially available options of trucks, of buses, of cars, and of fuel cell modules for power generation and other end use applications. So it's starting to become more commercial, and that has a good sort of this snowball effect as that grows out. And so we're seeing a leap in the maturity of technology that's available today as compared to, say, 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago. Where we see it going is I mean, growth, certainly. There are, I think there are headwinds we're facing in the hydrogen sector as well as the clean energy at large, given the state of international affairs, should I say, that have stalled some things. But there's a lot of momentum, I think, for the clean energy transition. The climate change is not going away. And as talked about at the intro, recent events in Iran show the impact of our dependencies on foreign oil and other factors. And so that instability that can come from these things. And so increased energy sovereignty, increased energy resilience has a benefit. And those things aren't going away. There's a lot of opportunity in BC, specifically within the hydrogen sector. We have the expertise, we have the resources, and we have more supportive conditions than many other locations for decarbonization. So we see in the near term it building out through these hub models. It's about creating these clusters where you can bring together production and end use. And then those hubs start to get connected through corridors, and then things grow and build and grow. So that's how I think we see things shaking out is, it's no longer like just a standalone project. It's about building hubs and then growing consistently from there. At least that's my view.
Thank you, Tim. So, Chad, I see you've typed in a question there, and Caleb, maybe you could go first because you got a follow up. And please,
Sure.
I'll just ask you to ask your questions yourselves, and then after Caleb, Chad, and then D Watt SSR. I don't know who that is, but if you could follow Chad, that'd be great.
Yeah. Just quickly, Tim, what are the trends for jurisdictions with high uptake that might be instructive for BC? Korea, China, you mentioned. And Brian, of course, if you can add insights as well, happy to hear from you. And just what are the implications of those trends? Like, how have we seen this play out in other jurisdictions is sort of the core question.
Yeah, another great question. I mean, I think those and the places where it's had good uptake have had a lot of support from government and from the industrial sector to drive that way, technology development. Energy in a place like Korea, the whole energy sector is quite different from here when there's a lot of dependence on external energy sources. And so that has driven a demand for lower carbon sources, internal sources. It's interesting in China, a lot of the development originally was coming from not just sort of the greenhouse gas emissions, but local air pollution in their cities. Like fuel cell electric vehicles burn clean. The output is, or shouldn't say burn, don't burn, but produce water vapor and air, and so it helps keep that air clean. And so supportive policies have been enabled to grow that sector, which enables economies of scale, which brings cost down. And those governments have been proactive in developing those sectors because I think they see it as the future or a component of the future. And so it's having that long-term vision to invest in that today so that it'll enable that future growth tomorrow.
Thanks, Tim. So, Chad, are you able to go ahead? You may be on mute if you're trying, Chad.
Well, hi, everybody. The question I had was just with regards to the expanding hydrogen fueling network, what's the timeline look like for heavy-duty freight corridors, specifically Port Drayage, let's say Delta Port or Prince Rupert, and also northern supply corridors into remote communities? And is there any kind of pilot projects that fleet operators will be able to get involved in?
Yeah, love it. Our HTEX station build out is sort of centered around Metro Vancouver and going out from there. Over the next few years, that'll be our focus. We do have some activity in the Prince George region, but aren't involved in anything going as far as Prince Rupert. I think there are others interested in that space, and I mentioned that sort of rising tide lifting all boats. Like other entities building hydrogen stations would be great for HTEC, even if they're in some view competitors. Like it's about the availability of this infrastructure that'll help us all. So I'm not sure of specific timelines on that. These projects do take time to develop for a variety of reasons. So they're not quick, but I think we're looking to see that build up, in the coming years. I don't know that I want to put a specific timeline on it, and I'm not sure what all the other entities in the province are doing. I'd love to see it faster, but this freight corridor, long distance travel is kind of where hydrogen has the biggest competitive advantage compared to battery electric technologies. So for local drayage opportunities that can be done by a battery electric truck, that's a pretty good option. It's the driving the long distances where hydrogen, that fast fueling, longer range, is more beneficial. We are doing in terms of trials. We're really doing that here. So anyone in the sort of Metro Vancouver area, if interested in participating, I'd love to talk to you more about that. We don't have any offerings currently kind of outside of that region. I know of another trial underway. I've heard of another trial underway, I think in the Prince Rupert region. Innovate BC has been managing. I'm not sure of the state of that. I can't speak to it too much, but I think there are other interested parties operating in this space, which is great. And I think that's, we're seeing that. That's part of why we're doing the vehicle leasing entity is a lot of people are interested in testing this technology. And so we want to facilitate those pilots, those trials, to build the confidence to demonstrate this effectiveness of it.
Good, thank you. And we have a hand up, D Watt SSR. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, this is all new to me, this topic. But I was looking at the document that was attached to the email invite, and but anyways, I was looking at some of the maps on here, and page 67 it talks about energy sources for production of green hydrogen, source Lemieux et al. 20, but I tried typing it into Google to see if I can find this map, but I'm particularly Vancouver Island, so I'm not sure if there's a specific place I can go to see, because I'm from the Sishat First Nation, and we're located on Port Alberni on Vancouver Island, so I'm not sure if there's any. And what I did find was mapping the ecosystem, and it talks about hubs on the island, and it does show Port Alberni, but it doesn't really show much. It just says, I guess it's potential for 2035, but I have no idea of if there's any kind of uh, more information I can look at to see if there's any like opportunities in the Alberni Valley for Sishat First Nation. So I don't know if that's something that can help me out with finding more information about Vancouver Island and in particular Port Alberni, if there's any opportunities that can be, arising. Thank you.
Hi, Peter. It's Brian here. Yeah, if you could just talk to me offline, I'll get you into the right area where there might be some resources that may be available to you.
Okay.
If we can connect afterwards. I don't have the information at hand right now, but we can get it for you.
Okay. And are you on the like the email list that's on this I'll just write your name now.
Yeah, it's Brian Martin and Mark Bloom. If Mark, are you able to connect us afterwards?
Sure, Dave. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see any more hands raised up. But Tim, I was wondering on the electrolyzer in Burnaby. I have no idea how an electrolyzer works, but I'm interested, and I don't know if others are. Um, is that something that it would be worth having a tour to see for people to see? And I'm kind of thinking of I help a number of communities, a couple of communities with small hydro projects that. Um, the demand is seasonal, where in the cold in the winter it's greater, in the spring and summer it's less. So they wind up spilling water, and then they need that water in the winter. So this hydrogen could be, and I think that's what's happening in Heiltsuk territory. Um, would it be beneficial for people to see that? And is there opportunity to learn what that would look like in the dream world in small remote communities?
Yeah. Well, the short answer, I think, yes, it could be possible to arrange a visit to have some people come take a look. We're very proud of that facility, and so we do arrange tours from time to time. So if you're interested in that, if you want to reach out to me, and I can sort of forward that to the right people to arrange that. In terms of, I know I've gone a little over my allotted time here, but I was going to pull up a slide, but I think I'll just speak to it. But yes, hydrogen is an option for that energy storage for configuration like you've described, where you're oversupplied in some months of the year and undersupplied in others. So you can produce hydrogen from an electrolyzer, and then store it in a tank and then convert it back to electricity. So it would function kind of similar to a battery. In that way. And there are some advantages and some disadvantages to both technologies in that sort of comparison. I know there was a study done by Dunsky Consulting, came out, I think, December of 2024, looking at sort of the opportunity for hydrogen in remote communities in BC. And it did find it was kind of an interesting result, I thought. Actually, it looked at if you were to this was looking at replacing diesel gensets, I guess, not with renewables, but it found if your goal is to replace 80% of the energy of 80% of the diesel, the batteries and hydrogen had sort of a comparable cost, but battery electric was a little bit cheaper. But if you looked at trying to replace 100% of your diesel, mixing in hydrogen production resulted in a much lower cost than having just the battery alone. So it was an interesting study. So there is, yeah, an opportunity for that type of that application for the technology. But it comes down to costs and other factors. And so something interesting to investigate, and the kind of work that we do investigating that type of project.
Okay, thank you very much. There's another interested party in the tour if that could happen. And yeah, so if there's any more questions, anybody, I think we're ready to break for lunch. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Tim. A really interesting presentation. I was curious, how much water is used to generate X amount of hydrogen? Like just any elementary baseline you could give me, because I don't know.
Yes. Let me think about, do I know this? In my head, I think it's about 18 liters a kilogram. But I'd want to double check myself there.
I can confirm it's roughly that, depending on like your cooling systems. It's between 12 and 18 liters per kilogram. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's at the system level, but if you just take the chemical transformation, you need 9 liters per kilogram of water. But the rest is for balance of plant, and it depends what you what system you're using.
Can that be done with salt water?
Not directly. Yeah, the electrolyzers generally require very pure water in order to, so they have to be, in fact, even like municipal water needs some amount of deionization, so filtering, to run through. So I think there may be some technologies under development that are looking to do that, but those would be sort of not commercially ready, technology ready. So it does require the fresh water.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tom.
Yes. Okay then. Thank you very much, Tim. And we'll take a break and come back. We're scheduled for 1 o'clock start. And Tom, I'll get you introduced then.
All right. Second time
Thank
the
you all
charm.
very much.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all.
Thanks. See you at 1. Hello, Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Sorry about that faux pas this morning.
No, that's all right. I thought maybe the agenda changed last minute, but I guess good that I was online. And just in case.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Let me check if I can still share my screen.
yeah,
Yep,
please.
it seems like I'm still authorized.
So we're getting pretty close. For those who you are on already, we'll get going here in a few more minutes. Just give people time to come back from lunch. Just before we get going, Tom, where's your accent from?
Hard to guess, but I'm half French, half British. So I've got the British accent with a twang there.
Yeah, yeah. Half French, half British makes you sound Australian.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Uh, I'll take it. I'll take it though.
It's all good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, everybody. I think what do we have? Quite a few people have returned from lunch, and more will be returning shortly, I believe. So we can get underway with Tom Moyes, who is going to present to us. He's a CEO of Salish Elements, an indigenous-owned clean energy and development company that aims to create a green hydrogen-based energy corridor along the west coast that revives the spirit of traditional trade routes, which is fabulous. He brings international experience across the hydrogen, energy, finance, consulting, healthcare, and sustainability sectors, with a particular expertise in energy project development and project finance. Over the course of his career, he has contributed to multiple multi-million dollar energy and healthcare projects around the world, successfully integrating commercial, financial, technical, and sustainability objectives. So we look forward to your presentation, Tom. Please go ahead.
Wonderful. Many thanks for the introduction there, Peter. Lovely to meet everyone. It's a pleasure. I'm really happy to see that more nations and communities are getting interested in the subject. Hydrogen is my passion and my specialty in the clean energy field. Um, yeah, so very happy to be here today. Without further ado, I'll jump in and just want to make sure if you can see my screen and yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we can.
All right. So Salish Elements is an indigenous-led corporation, product development partner in different areas, but with a cornerstone project. But our energy model aims to address climate change challenges and build circular sustainability, indigenous self-determination, and reconciliation. So hopefully that all resonates to all of you. In short, what we do, we work on the supply of hydrogen by bringing green, reliable, and affordable hydrogen supply. Work with communities for different hydrogen-based utilities for power, but also for the fuel sector. Work with the integration both on the technology and the end use, and we look at all of this as a sustainable way to grow. Um, Our key focus is to, in the long term, to build a traditional trade routes across the West Coast. Here, the interior isn't as much shown in the image here, but it's very much part of it, and also through to Alberta, with infrastructure, distribution, and applications based on green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is today at the cusp of being a new type of way of dealing with energy. And as mentioned earlier, it's an energy carrier, which makes it very flexible for different end uses, feedstock, and multiples of application. You heard from H-Tech about mobility this morning, but there's also other end uses. And we're trying to build these different projects with production in certain key locations, with distribution in others, and sometimes mixed together, and applications around that. So our core partnership is with Hachlip. I mentioned Salish Elements. I won't go through it, but we're led by Ruben George, who's probably well known to some of you in the call. Who's our chairman and majority owner. Hachlip is a community part of the Statlam Nation, located close to Lillooet. And we have formed a partnership under a limited partnership entity. Took a lot of engagement, quite a few agreements. With the main goal is building hydrogen infrastructure and in particular production, which we're working through phase one of our first projects together. So without further ado, I'll present a bit on our cornerstone project. So we're working on a 10 megawatt hydrogen production based on electrolysis, 100% grid connected with local hydropower capacity from BC Hydro under the Bridge River Dam and the connected systems. So we're able to have a continuous and consistent production output. We are working in the gaseous phase of hydrogen, but later on for phase two, where we're looking to expand to 25 megawatt, we are going to build a liquid hydrogen system so that we can distribute to a larger catchment area. Obviously, we're trying to build as much as possible around the community's needs, and that requires different engagement. Lastly, we went through the ISK process because Hachlip is an underlying land code, which involved a community referendum where the finalization for the land designation process was done. Obviously, continuous engagement, continuous changes, depending on community needs, will happen. But essentially, that was pretty positive. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, the ISK process is pretty tedious and lengthy. So we're really happy about that. How we work, maybe more on the like exact structure of the partnership. So Salish Elements is acting as the main project developer. Obviously, we have partners on the operational side of things and on the development and engineering as well for the special purpose vehicle or the limited partnership entity, which falls under the Hachlip Development Corporation and Hachlip as a whole. We have an advisory council, which is, I think, a key aspect in doing the liaison day to day, becoming the experts on the subject, and making sure that the Hachlip community needs are fulfilled throughout the development of the project. Schedule, we're currently in our feed stage, so like the front end engineering and design to a class 3, which is going to enable us to go through a final investment decision by Q1 of 2027, which gives us the 2-year timeframe for construction, procurement of equipment, and commissioning so that we can start operations in Q1 of 2029. Via value chain, so we're looking at a hydro via the grid, electrolysis technology called PEM, Processing, that's the standard purification, cooling, and other balance of plants, PSA, but also compression for storage and distribution. And we're dispensing for a few end uses, which I'll explain here. So for our offtake or end uses, we're looking at data centers for their peak management and backup power. We're working with the Lami tribe across the border in the US for their initially for their fuel cells for their casino as part of their energy sovereignty program. And mobility within and around the port for drayage and some hybrid vehicles and some remote communities in the southern interior. So we've addressed some of key risks. So some key risks you have around technology, permitting, and community, commercial and financial, and final execution. So we're using some high TRL technology partners that have experience in North America, that have also guarantees. I think that's a key thing to de-risk technology. We've had continuous engagement. We've had the land designation has de-risked to some extent, some stages on the community level. But we had the strong community backing. We work with different offtakes, but as part of our vision, also supported by government and industry so that we can de-risk the commercial and financial aspects. And on the execution, we work with some of the development partners that I showed that enable us to also gain that extra foothold in terms of expertise that sometimes we lack just in the internal capacity, but internally we also have a very strong team with engineers, business development, finance, within Salish Elements, and also within the limited partnership. So I think it's important because I imagine a lot of people here are envisaging if projects around hydrogen might be possible. So key things is that there's certain risks around hydrogen. So as I showed earlier, it's a pretty complex value chain. So bankability at the end of the day is what's going to determine for every project globally what projects are going to go through, be it on the technology side, end use or production. So what you want is some strong regulatory drivers, which we do have in Canada. And last week I was in Victoria with the government of BC, and a lot of things are going to come up, notably new BC hydrogen strategy with probably a bit more realistic targets, but more focused incentives. Renewable source or power or cheap power is going to be key. We strive for strong capacity factors, the availability of the grid connectivity. Local demand also it creates a key bankability. So if you have a pulp mill, cement factory, or some mobility options nearby, that's always going to be something that's going to bring the project forward. Availability of storage or injection in pipelines also can bring the bankability to a high level. Generally have the macro level risk, which is very much hard to play, and energy security or sovereignty. So you can have energy sovereignty drivers, and especially in the current climate with diesel and oil prices that are going to go through the roof or are already up quite a bit, but with unforeseen changes at this stage. That's when some key that's probably the right moment to jump into hydrogen as an alternative. Key is the value chain. So you have your feedstock, which is your electricity and your water, your hydrogen production, which is mainly the electrolyzer, but there's also some processing around that. The storage and distribution, which can be storage on site, storage at different locations for distribution, and a method of transport. And then you have the end use, for which you need dispensing, and the right application, which could be the mobility, or it could be ammonia production, or it could be something more around backup or extra power at certain sites. Um, key is the value chain and getting all of that secured, but you also need the key support from community, and that involves everyone. There's always going to be some disagreements within government, technological partners, permitting organizations, service suppliers, construction and engineering partners. All those are like some key stakeholders to include that aren't necessarily directly part of the value chain. And it's all about how you de-risk all those aspects together. And when you look at a hydrogen project, so a cornerstone project is on production, but we have to work on all the value chain to make it work and make the ecosystem work around that. So key project risks that you have in pre-feasibility is generally around siting, so finding the right site. So how far away are you from a power line, a renewable source? Over over optimistic budgets often cited, so you have to remain realistic, have a general contract strategy, and you're involving all the stakeholders that you need. And next stage is feasibility, so permitting and environmental assessments are some of the key aspects to tackle. And general timeliness. Sometimes feasibility studies take a long time, because there's a bit of back forth changes, which is what it's supposed to do. And in the feed, having the right technology partners, a realistic design, because it involves a lot of process engineering, but also mechanical, electrical, and getting that de-risking for closing funding by offtake is probably key. In construction periods, lead times, so every project that requires medium or high voltage transformer, that's going to take 2 years at the minimum, depending on the exact voltage needed. But like if it requires a substation, you're generally looking at 2 years lead time. There's also some contracts you need to make sure happen with your EPC, and that the developers or the development partnership is covered. In terms of operations, always safety first for everything. So looking at having the local fire brigade involved, and like knowing what they have to do in case of issue, that the technical operators also are trained properly, that there's a strong monitoring and maintenance program, and that you're able to adapt, because there'll be some market changes, some use changes. Maybe one of the end use applications you're working with, that company fails for whatever reason, then you're able to adapt to a different business model and different processes. That's a key aspect. I won't spend too much time. You basically, throughout the development of a project, you're looking to decrease the risk, and that also involves that you increase the spend gradually. So the more valuable you can do your spend at the beginning, the more valuable you can get that risk down to a level that's more acceptable, so that your project fulfills its success story. So, I wanted to go through something that we learned in the de-risking, and like what we could have done better, and what we've done since to at a high level to enable the projects to go forward. So key is offtake development. Offtake, that means who's buying your product or service. So in our case, it's who's buying the hydrogen. So the work needed on that has to be done early, has to be done with the right partners. Coming back to bankability, the depending on how bankable that offtake is. So like, for example, HTEC has sold or leasing quite a few trucks to a company like Loblaw. that's a very bankable partner at the end of the day. Water and electricity, so your feedstock basically, you have to work early on that. There are some key risks. BC Hydro can take a long time. I heard this morning there's some potential water issues. That's also why we have revised a bit how we do things and how we phase our approach. Permitting, so early engagement. For instance, in our case, there was a new regulation on the FNCDA. So that means we're working for a tripartite agreement with BC, the BC Energy Regulator, and ISC and FNCDA. So some aspects, if you're on reserve land or if you're not, will change in terms of the process. But if you have the right support for it, so like the right backing, talking to the right people, you'll be able to work through it. We've also admittedly have some sunk costs. There's some things we spent some money on that we probably shouldn't have, but enable us to have some lessons learned. Community engagement, we definitely had the lesson learned in terms of how we went to the community, how we disseminated information. There's always more you can do, and it's about finding the right sweet spot in terms of how engaged everyone is. You know, where some people don't show up to the different sessions, so you need to deliver things to a bit more to the door, that kind of thing. The value chain security, so that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Technology, so choosing the right partners there, and high technological readiness, so commercially available technology, not something that's completely new. Unless it's a fully funded government pilot project, then maybe you can. Looking at realistic funding timelines and engagement with stakeholders, your engineering and business development. So that's something we learned that we had probably focused a lot on engineering because we also got funded to a large portion for that on the government side. But key is the business development and continuation of that because you can't basically separate one and the other. And you also have to follow market trends. So there's some ups and downs, like the war in Iran is going to push the hydrogen market up globally, but if diesel and oil prices go down, then the mobility sector for hydrogen might be a bit less enthusiastic. So you kind of have to be able to adapt to that. So how we mitigated this is what we looked at a phasing approach. Instead, we initially had our plans to go to 25 megawatt directly, which kind of followed a bit of the market demand in BC and an offtake potential. We developed a framework with for the community engagement so that there's some continuity aspect to it. We went early and received strong government support, which helped us go through a lot of these things. We did some good early work on the electricity side and probably could have done a bit better on the water side. But now we're building something from which the community can benefit as well with community upgrades on the well and groundwater, and as well as the distribution for that. Early engagement for permitting key, so like key regulators like BCEI and BC, and strategic spending. So that's more about like figuring out where to take risks. There will always be some sunk costs, but those can be minimized with a bit of strategic thinking. Overall, there's plenty of opportunity to bring some benefits multi-generationally. So both on energy and environmental stewardship and sovereignty. So innovation, but tying in cultural traditions. So we looked at also building a biocultural center with some of the waste heat. It's early stages at right now, so I didn't talk too much about it, but that's something we're also doing. So it can also help cross over to some food security aspects, economic and infrastructure sovereignty. So a lot of projects with maybe more traditional fields, I'll put it like that. Just basically come in, just asking for the permission from the community. Here, it's the opportunity for the community to be at the forefront and lead what they want to happen in the energy field. And it's also plenty of future opportunities and growth. Hydrogen is a growing sector. You heard it at the beginning. I think there's plenty of opportunities for both First Nations and Canada as a whole, as per the hydrogen strategy, to come to the forefront and be the leaders of that growth. And yeah, that's it from me. So
That's great, Tom. Thank you very much. That's a lot of information there. So again, if there's any questions, people can raise their hand or type it into the chat, and we'll pick Tom's brain a bit more. Maybe Tom, to get us going, you talked about a land designation for your project there, and I have some experience with them, and they're brutal. That is a brutal process. So congratulations. I've been involved in half a dozen of them. None succeeded in the first go round, and only 2 ever did out of half a dozen.
okay.
So really,
Yeah.
congratulations to you.
Thanks. It
You had
was a long process, and I'm not sure if they're in the call, but I would not acknowledge the help from Andrew, the head of economic development, and Kate, who's our managing director of the limited partnership for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes good community support. A question comes in here. It says, can you talk a bit about the regulatory jurisdictions as per the question earlier today?
The regulatory jurisdiction. So we're in BC as a company, and our the project, the cornerstone project with Haglip is on their Haglip reserve land. So that jurisdiction means that it's under the federal government. But from a regulatory perspective, under FNCDA, there needs to be some alignment with the BC Energy Regulator. So we fall under this tripartite agreement with ISK, FNCDA, and BCER, where they all have to come together but follow the BCER process, the BC Energy Regulator process. So it's a bit complicated, but once that agreement is in place, you're pretty much aligned with the BC regulations. Jurisdictionally as well, like I'm sure HTech could talk a bit about it. Like there's some municipal permits, there's different aspects that, for example, we don't have to apply. So it depends from project to project, but on reserve land, that's probably going to be the main permits. So what that involves as well is the environmental assessment, which we have done, and then you can also for the certain thresholds for environmental impacts. So like one would be if you have more than 250 workers during construction, which would make you hit another level of the BC permitting process as part of the BCER for during construction. So you'd have to do an increased environmental impact assessment. And then there's all the water impact assessments, etc. That those kind of are folded in the full assessment from with ISK. So yeah, ISK is doing the environmental side of things, and BCEI is kind of on the next stages for construction and operation. Not sure if that was exact question because we talked about jurisdiction. So did that answer?
Brian, is that you're good?
Yeah, hi Tom. Yeah, very much so. And if I can just do a quick follow on, how does Bill C-1415 within BC has it affected your project at all in either a positive or negative way?
No, we haven't been affected, and so we have the regular roundtables with the major project office who supports us through any regulatory hurdles we might have. Um, but so far we haven't been affected by Bill C-1514.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Chad, do you want to go ahead?
Hi there. Yeah, I just had a question with regards to the company itself, Salish Elements. Being a First Nations company that's operating in the hydrogen space, I was wondering what's the biggest barrier that you encountered entering into that space, and then what kind of advice you can give to other Indigenous companies in adjacent industries such as freight and logistics who might want to get into this kind of hydrogen economy as operators other than just as observers.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I think in terms of barriers, I would say there's probably not too much, but like one key aspect was that was very difficult to pass along was working with international investors who don't necessarily understand the landscape and indigenous aspects that a project and a company like us are involved in. But I would say there's probably more benefits to have. The government is going to be very supportive. We're always a highlight in terms of, oh, look what's happening. Like there's actually probably not enough indigenous companies or communities involved at this stage in the hydrogen and even other clean energy sectors. So I think there's a lot of space for new companies or existing companies to jump into that field. Um, and there's also some extra potential on some funding opportunities. So as long as that stays, I think there's actually probably more benefits than barriers. So I would encourage you to look at it. Every different use has different business case models. So if we're talking, you mentioned freight. So if you want to look at freight, you need to figure out, okay, distance wise, what am I looking at? In some cases, maybe the battery electric vehicle might be better, depending on your size, your use. But hydrogen can cover more distance, has got lots of advantages. I think H-Tech mentioned quite a few, but every business case is different. So yeah, plan carefully and then see if it makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Travis?
Yeah, I missed the beginning of your presentation, so I imagine you're a company presenting here. Um, I'm wondering how your company feel. It doesn't have to be your company, or if you've run into the environmental assessment process. There was just the previous question about Bill 14 and 15 influencing you, and noticing today that a new notification came out on the legislation act to expedite the EA process. But should an EA be required or requested by a First Nations? And again, I will poo-poo on government again and just not be naive enough to say they always approve, because they don't. But if a company is willing to accept the levels of a project assessment that's similar to an EA, but um, Indigenous led and Indigenous run, have you encountered that, or do you know of companies that have encountered that, or at least assisted in challenging the EA when they say or they deny it to be an environmental assessment project?
Yeah, so I'll maybe just touch on our process first. So our environmental assessment, geotechnical assessment, archaeological assessment fell under the ISK kind of jurisdiction. So that's how we went through with it. Every aspect that the community wants to enhance, thereafter it's a choice for the limited partnership to decide what needs to be done. It's always balance between cost and information, because you can do 1,000 studies and have less conclusions than if you did one. So it's also a matter about quality and what's most important for the community. So for example, we had we we had the last few engagements increasing questions on the groundwater. So we've redone some studies and some assessments, and now we figured out a way that will actually also benefit the community with some a new well, new distribution system, and that will fall under ISK process again. So that will actually could take long, but with us, we're hoping we can accelerate that process. Um, with regards to other projects, I think it depends. I think there's always ways for the community to have more involvement, so long as it sees eye to eye. So we're the project developer, but at the end, the project is Hachlip's project because they're the lead in the limited partnership, so they decide. So if you have that same form of structure, it's to the community to lead and decide what's best.
Oh, thank you, Tom. It's great to hear that kind of acknowledgement of who's leading the project. I just been notified that we have a hard stop for the next presenter in
All
30
right.
minutes. So I'm just going to end the questions, and maybe we can ask more if people have more questions for you later on, Tom. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure thing. I'll have a hard
Okay.
stop at 2, but yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. So
Thanks.
we were supposed to have a couple people from BC and Canada. Unfortunately, the representatives from BC aren't available today. They did, however, note that the province's H2 strategy is currently being amended. And once that's complete, there'll be further opportunities to connect with them about that. Who we do have with us today is Amandeep Garcha. He's a deputy director in the fuel sector at Natural Resources Canada. His team leads the federal government's efforts in implementing the hydrogen strategy for Canada. And Amandeep has over 18 years of experience spanning across major subsectors of the natural resource economy. So, Amandeep, if you're ready to go, please go ahead.
Thanks, Peter. I'm just going to share a window here, quick presentation. Hopefully it comes through. Give me the thumbs up if it's looking all right.
It is looking good.
Great. Well, nice to meet everyone today. As mentioned, my name is Amandeep Garcha, Deputy Director of the Hydrogen Team here at Natural Resources Canada, based out of White Rock, British Columbia, after serving 19 years in Ottawa. I'd like to start off my presentation by just giving a high-level sort of summary in terms of where hydrogen came from and what its relation is to Canada. I'd like to start off by situating the hydrogen story firmly within Canada's history as a innovative resource developer. Now, Canada has been at the forefront of hydrogen technologies for more than a century, and Canadian companies have been at the forefront of hydrogen fuel cell development for 40 plus years. This strong foundation really positions Canada to be a global leader in hydrogen production, fuel cell technologies, and provide fertile ground for future growth. Now, Canada has an abundance of natural resources, and that's what really positions us in a competitive position. We have existing expertise, access to global markets, and really a supplier of choice for low carbon hydrogen and related technologies and services. Recognizing this strong foundation and in keeping in tune with the global energy transition, the Department of Natural Resources released the Hydrogen Strategy for Canada in 2020, which was essentially a call to action to gauge whether or not sectors of the economy, provinces, and various stakeholders and Indigenous groups were interested in hydrogen. And essentially, it highlights how hydrogen and low carbon hydrogen can play an essential role in meeting global energy needs in the context of energy security, the energy transition, and the broader climate imperative. Now, the versatility of hydrogen was also shared in this strategy, and it can be used as an industrial feedstock, support the decarbonization of heavy transport and marine applications, can be used as industrial heat, and ultimately a strategic tool. It's not the silver bullet by any means, but it's meant to augment electrification. Since the hydrogen strategy was published, as I'd mentioned, we had a significant amount of interest from coast to coast to coast. And as a result, there was a request for a progress report in 2024, which outlined several priorities moving forward. Primarily, we were given a funding tool called the Clean Hydrogen Investment Tax Credit, which was essentially used to incent the production of hydrogen across the country. And this is really meant to de-risk projects while positioning Canada as a leader. Secondly was the advancement of hydrogen hubs and corridors. We are seeing these form already in places like Edmonton, Greater Vancouver, Southern Ontario, to really match low carbon hydrogen supply with demand. Third is advancing codes and standards, recognizing that safety and security are critical to the development of hydrogen ecosystems. And most recently, the engineers in my sector developed a hydrogen codes and standards roadmap released in January, and it identifies gaps in codes and standards along the hydrogen value chain and proposes actions to address them in the short and medium term. And lastly, we recognize that there's a need for broader awareness regarding hydrogen and the opportunities that it brings. So we're working with academia and industry associations in advancing hydrogen awareness and understanding it as a future fuel and a decarbonization tool. Now this slide essentially shows the exponential growth that we've seen in hydrogen across the country since 2020. Currently, there are approximately 60 projects in the development stage, 14 that are currently operational, all representing nearly $100 billion in potential investment. What we're seeing here is a sort of an overview of, historically we've been very competitive in terms of producing carbon intensive hydrogen, nearly 2 to 4 million tons per annum, which is primarily used for industrial processes and ammonia production. These existing pathways are low-hanging fruit to decarbonize and provide essential local offtake for these production sites. The goal then will be to broaden and expand into other subsectors of the economy. Something that's really caught a lot of attention is the decarbonization of the medium and heavy duty vehicle sector, recognizing just the sheer distances that heavy freight needs to travel to support community resupply and in getting goods from point A to point B. Got a bit of a frozen screen here, bear with me. There we go. So as I mentioned earlier, the real pride and joy of my team here is having a tool that we can share with Canadians from coast to coast to coast to help de-risk and unlock some of the production challenges that we're facing. So the legislation regarding the CHITC received royal assent in June of 2024, and it provides a tax credit for eligible property for the production of clean hydrogen, and it is based on the carbon intensity of the hydrogen produced. There is also an additional 15% to converting to ammonia. This is ammonia as a hydrogen carrier. There are several other hydrogen carriers, which we are working with finance, who is the main sort of delivery, who plays the main delivery function in terms of legislative and policy design and administration, looking to broaden not only production pathways, but also carriers moving forward. Other incentives that many companies have also benefited from is Clean Fuels Fund, which had a dedicated Indigenous stream as well. This was initially released in 2021 and invested $1.5 billion over 5 years. In 2024, it was retooled with another 375 million, and the objective of this fund really was to help Canada meet its net zero targets, increase domestic opportunities, and strengthen our national energy security. But overall, there are a suite of federal incentives from production to end use supporting the development of the hydrogen sector. However, the economic viability of projects cannot solely depend on subsidies. Rather, they should be used to support and de-risk the development of that project. And what I wanted to show here is, while I have the honor and privilege of implementing the hydrogen strategy for Canada and providing technical guidance regarding the CHITC, the expertise is really spread throughout the Government of Canada and amongst the provinces as well. So this slide just sort of gives a bit of an overview within NRCan, who does what. So just a brief overview. The Office of Energy Research and Development really looks at those technologies that are not commercially deployable and that may be anywhere along the TRL spectrum from technology readiness level 1 through 10. We have our CAMNET Energy Labs, which looks at hydrogen leakage, looks at pipeline integrity, flammability, and various other monitoring aspects. The Geological Survey of Canada conducts research looking at naturally occurring hydrogen deposits, as well as salt storage sites. Our Strategic Policy and Integration Branch coordinates our international engagements, and we have a Regional Strategies Office, which coordinates with the provinces. I should also give a shout out to the National Research Council, which helps in the R&D side of things. Innovation, Social and Economic Development Canada, which provides guidance on technologies such as electrolyzers, crackers, and dehydrogenation technologies. Environment and Climate Change Canada, which provides emissions monitoring for the development of the fuel LCA model. And of course, Finance Canada, whom we support in the administration of incentives like the ITCs. I'd like to thank everyone for their attention today. Just some departing thoughts before I sign off. What we're noticing under the current government is that energy security, energy affordability, trade diversification are central to the new government's priorities. Clean energy is being framed within competitiveness, not just climate policy. And hydrogen will continue to support industrial competitiveness. And the key here is speed to deployment now that the competitive advantage of Canada's resources has been identified. So what has worked so far in the past with projects getting to final investment decision is strong project economics come first, alignment across governments, early Indigenous equity participation, and ultimately, if you want federal attention, show how the project crowds in private capital and how success can be copied elsewhere. Replicability is a key multiplier. I'd like to thank everyone for their time. Happy to field a couple of questions.
Great, thank you, Mandeep. So again, folks, if you have questions, raise your hand or type it in. You seem to have answered everybody's questions by merely presenting, Amandeep. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through the list and yeah. Go ahead.
Well, Peter, you can always share my contact details if folks are shy or if they want to reach out discreetly, and happy to address questions to the best of my knowledge.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Amandeep. And Mark, it'd be the person. We got a question here. Travis, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe more of a declaration than a question, but you did say something along the lines of 40 plus years, Canada is a global leader and provides fertile ground for NRs. Just a reminder that, Canada doesn't provide those. Our lands do, our resources, our territory, our COSELT, our relations provide those. So that's 40 years of still, unclosed, unfinished dialogue and capacity mitigation, compensation, or accommodation to the peoples. So just laying that out on record for, we don't get it done in this 10, 20, 30, 50 years. So my great-great-grandchildren see that this is being recorded. We'll hear that and know that that declaration is being made to your organization in our territories. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Travis. That's a good point we all need to be reminded of periodically. One thing I can ask you, Amandeep, if you can, is your comment in there about the project development and the economic viability holding precedence or being the really important thing. This has been the model of the development of Canada, and First Nation people were off to the side. I understand there are some programs out there, but even with those programs, when it actually gets down to decisions, can you shed any light on what decision-making process is in Canada about First Nation involvement?
It's a very good question, Peter, and this is part of the reason why I've had the privilege of leading the implementation of the hydrogen strategy. Is this is a relatively nascent sector, so we have an opportunity to get it right. And when I say get it right, I mean Indigenous inclusion in the decision making, in the convening, in the benefits, but from the very beginning. It's harder to get folks involved when an industry has been developed for decades, if not hundreds of years. Positions have been solidified. It's really hard to influence one way or the other. But here we have a golden opportunity to be inclusive from the very beginning. And from my engagement with Indigenous communities from coast to coast to coast, is that hydrogen, given that it's a clean fuel, really resonates with Indigenous values. And we understand that hydrogen, the opportunity is going to be different by place and play, and the resources from the earth that can be used for this are different as well, and they're valued differently. And so part of this process that I've launched, been leading the launch of, is having the opportunity to creatively design my engagement. And for me personally, and for my team, engagement with Indigenous peoples at the very beginning is at the heart of our work and of our consultation process. And that's part of the reason why I'm here today. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share the work that the federal government and my team are doing within this space.
Thanks for that response, Amandeep. Appreciate that. We've got a few minutes left here, and I just want to make clear to everybody that if you have questions for Amandeep or Tom, they both have hard stops at 2 o'clock, so fire away if you do have questions. Okay, Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question for Amandeep. I know there's a lot of funding mechanisms through NRCan, and I was wondering if you could touch on, I was thinking, like, let's say local First Nations wanted to develop a fleet of hydrogen-powered vehicles. Is there any type of funding avenues that could facilitate that?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So I'll talk about some of the funding mechanisms that we have at NRCan, recognizing my mandate really covers the production side of things. So we have the Indigenous Natural Resources Partnership, which is based out of my department, and it's really focused more on the capacity building side of things. Of course, there's the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program as well, which was previously administered by my department, but now it's administered by CDEV now. There's several projects in the programs division in terms of what's it called? The ZVIP, so Zero Emissions Vehicle Infrastructure Program. That program has been utilized for hydrogen refueling stations throughout the country, and then NRCan and the Government of Canada also provides funding to regional entities like Prairies Can, Pacific Can, FedDev, ACOA, to support, because they're more the boots on the ground as they engage with industries, to work with them to see where the need is, and then my team is able to provide technical guidance on whether that project is viable, if it has the right feedstock, if it's engaged appropriately, and whatnot. So there are a host of different projects covering a number of different departments. If you would like a map, let's say, for example, based on your company's objectives, I'd be happy to share a bit of a map in terms of the different funding mechanisms that company X would have compared to company Y, who may be involved in the industrial decarbonization space, for example. I hope that answers your question, Chad.
Yeah, I think it does. Thanks, Amandeep.
Okay, Amandeep, one more question here for you. Is clarification requests, and the question is the 40%, for example, tax incentive, a tax deduction, or is it a payment, example, 40% of the capital costs?
Yeah, it's 40% of the capital costs, which would be deducted.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Any more questions from anybody? We're getting close to the end of our allotted time, so I'll just say thank you very much, Amandeep, for your time, and Tom as well for earlier today. Everybody, thank you for attending all day today. It's been an amazing discussion and a good opening into hydrogen, I think. There's obviously lots more to learn for all of us, and it's great to have First Nations Energy and Mining Council facilitating this discussion and supporting all our communities. I'm sure everybody knows if you have more questions, you can reach out to Mark or others at First Nations Energy and Mining Council. And Caleb, would you like to wrap up the day with some closing remarks?
Sure, briefly. Yeah, Chad, it looks like we need to link you up to some folks. And there are so many acronyms. So maybe there's a mapping function that the Energy and Mining Council can do to help people navigate this complex space. I think cognizant of time, one, thank you everybody. Brian, for your research, for the questions from Travis, Marlene, thank you for your questions and comments about the work you're doing at SOAS, and Marlene Dixon Helsick, Carol, your points about water impact. I noticed, I think that's a really interesting aspect of this discourse. Yeah, I stand by what I said at the beginning, that the changing energy landscape makes the security logic of this fuel system more important. And as we saw at the end, like the regulatory process and the financial substructures and architectures around this type of technology are still malleable. They're not yet colonized by the big players, I would argue. And thus, I think there's a major opportunity for nations who want to engage in this kind of thing. You know, our job is not to incentivize or support or deny, but to provide information. And we commit to doing so. But as you can tell by the comments, like, for example, BC is actively amending their hydrogen policy right now. This is a really interesting space. So again, must see show to those who provide their time and expertise. Do review the literacy report. That's really good baseline. In particular, some sophisticated points about like financing structures, risks, consequences. The Energy and Mining Council is here to serve. I'm here to serve. So if there's anything at all that we can do, we will follow up. Yeah, must see show to everybody and to Peter for facilitating. It's appreciated. Interesting times we live in. So must see.
Finish, Caleb. So, and thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marnie.
Joe. And for my team, we're just going to stay on for a quick sec. Nice. Peter, where are you based?
Sunny Island, British Columbia.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
I got to work with your dad years ago.
You know Claire as well, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, my cousin.
Yeah, I was guessing. I wasn't sure, but yeah, it's I've never been, but I've been told that I should attend.
You gotta come. It's just much like your own homeland, just some beautiful